Thanks. So my name is Craig Lamb. I'm a partner at Envative. We are a technology solutions company here in Rochester, and by technology solutions, it means that we're an engineering company. We produce hardware and software solutions for our companies, help them grow, increasing revenues, adding and improving efficiencies, and creating set differentiators with our clients. Just a couple of things to change the schedule. I don't use PowerPoint, so this is the whole slide deck right here. I find them insanely boring. I don't use them, so we won't be able to go into those. And I'm not going to go for 45 minutes. This will be about a 20-minute dialogue and a monologue, and then we'll go through some questions and answers. So the topic for today is how every company is a tech company. And what I wanted to do to solidify this point is start with the word technology. Now this term has changed pretty significantly over the years. Now specifically speaking, the word technology is, it means applying scientific knowledge for practical purpose, especially in industry, right? And that we know. But, years ago, that could have been machinery, processes, or systems, things that we could recognize. But today, it really does mean hardware and software, digital tech. And that's that evolution. So when we're talking about tech for the rest of this conversation, it's really going to be about that, the hardware and software that's available to us today. Now, just a touch of a history lesson. Since America has emerged as an independent nation, we've been the birthplace of 161 of Britannica's 321 greatest innovations. All right, so you think about things like the airplane, refrigerator, air conditioning, email, cell phone, internet, personal computer, just to name a few. Right, so we have a reputation of innovation. This is what we're about. And if you think about all those systems and products we just talked about too, it's about making things more efficient, about how things can get better. And really it's about, this is a paradigm of behavior. That's the whole point of the talk. It's not whether we are all tech companies, because we are, whether we want to acknowledge that or not, but it is a method of behavior. And how do tech companies behave, right? It's about how we do business. It's about how we compete. It's about thinking sideways instead of top down. And embracing opportunities to make real change, transformative change in businesses and in your marketplace. The Washington Post wrote an article earlier this year that really caught my attention. They're saying that the future of new business is disrupting the old business, right? It talked about Netflix and Airbnb and some others, but really the point of the article is simply this. There's many markets that are entrenched by incumbents that have really low efficiencies. They lack technical innovations, and they're ripe for takeover. Right? So, and why does this happen? It's really kind of leadership in its simplest terms. And it's that rejection of embracing technology as a method to innovate and grow your business. And I think that's the point about for the behavioral part. And ignoring tech and those opportunities have dire effects. So what I was going to do to solidify these points so I don't get into a bunch of stats and bore the hell out of everybody is that we'll talk about it in stories. Now, I'm going to tell the story. And I'm sure you know the players, I'm sure you know how it ends, but I don't care because it actually solidifies the points. So we can tell that anyway. So in 1907, the Yellow Cab Company started. And by 1920, they had grown so large that they had a manufacturing facility for taxi cabs. And they were backed by some really big companies, Hertz and some others. And they started popping up subsidiaries in like every city in the country. And they had the cab, taxi business on lockdown. Now, in 2009, Uber Technologies surfaced in San Francisco. And they didn't have any drivers. They were only approved in one city, but they had an app, right? They listened to the customer, that audience that they had, that was being ignored by the leadership of Yellow Cab. And with this app, they could request a ride with a push of a button, right? We know this, we've all used it. They eliminated the aggravation of having a curbside hail. They knew exactly what the rate was going to be for their ride. They even knew what car they were going to drive. Now, Yellow Cab Company had a 102-year market leader head start, but they didn't release an app until 2012. Right? In that same time, Uber Technologies was able to take that same platform of self-service and listening to their customer base and integrate it into multiple markets, like water taxi, food delivery, bike sharing, courier package delivery. They were able to do all that. in that same amount of time. And in 2016, the Yellow Cab company of San Francisco filed for bankruptcy. Now, are they related? I think so. There's some debate. But even if you look at local examples, right, you could argue Kodak's ignoring the trends as far as digital photography. Too late. The struggles with Xerox. Something. There was also another Forbes article that came out actually just last month, where it said that most of the largest companies in the world will be replaced by new, more innovative companies over the next decade. Because these large conglomerate companies, they can't stand the test of time any longer without really keeping their finger on the pulse of technologies and being able to be moved and agile enough to know that these things exist by listening to their customer audiences and seeing how things people are using and engaging with their products and services. Even the stuff that was considered boring and mainstay, like for example, supply chain and logistics, was disrupted by Amazon, right? It wasn't so much about Amazon's retail, but with their Prime delivery, free shipping, they had real incumbents like Walmart and Target had to change their entire strategies of pricing and shipping just to follow suit, just to stay in the game with Amazon. So, like I said, and I'm reiterating, it's about behaving like a tech company. And how do we do that? How do we behave like a tech company? Well, the good news is it's easy. It's like any other skill. You can learn it. In fact, it's probably skills you already have, at least as a team you have. It's a convergence really, from where I see it, as 4 different types of skills. And this is an exercise that we do at Envative with our customers, clients, when we talk about the project, so I'm going to articulate that and put them into some roles to give them some easier definition. So to think and behave like a tech company, first you have to think like a radical, right? It's sideways thinking. And I'll talk about that a little more too, and I'll actually give an example later. Is that you want to rip it all down and start with something new, right? Which you can't normally do, but you have to dismiss all that stuff. You have to dismiss the realities of your business by like budget, timeline, things like that. Just dream and dream big. Question everything. Why does it cost this much? Why do we do things this way? Why is our position that? We just get it down on paper. We do this sort of wireframing process, and we just have people what are your dreams? Just get them done. And that radical thinking is important, because if you attack everything with sobriety, then you'll just never get anything done. You won't take any risks. You won't really analyze things differently. Once you're done with your radical thinking, you have to switch hats. And so the best metaphor I can come up with is like a news reporter interviewing that radical that just came up with these crazy ideas. And this is it's an interesting, and it's also a very important stage, because what you have to do to do this successfully is you have to remove any personal biases or agendas that you might have, right? Because when you're talking about introduction of innovations or technologies or behaving like a tech, you're not going to please everybody, but you have to remove those things that are standing in the way of what you think might be best versus the easiest. You have to, like I said, ask the right questions and challenge the audience so you can reveal that idea for value, even if it's counterintuitive. Once you're done doing that, you have to kind of change hats again, and now you have to become an educator. Because now that this is revealed, I'm sure as most of you know, it's like we're naturally adverse to change, right? And learning stuff new, unless it's explained or presented in a way that the value is inherent or overt. So you have to change your hat to being that teacher, that educator. Again, you can apply different metaphors for these, but these are the ones that I came up with because they make the most sense. Once that's done, you have to, and this is the hardest part, I think, is that, especially when we're dealing with some projects or with companies on different projects, and I think this probably proliferates with everybody else, is that you have to change your hat to be a CEO or an owner and work with that lens. Right, because after you dismiss what the shiny new tech is, just because it's shiny and new, how does it move the needle of the business? How does it increase revenues? How do you have more engaged customers? How do you have a better interaction with your employees and partners? So, and that takes a very strategic eye, because if it's not done properly or done well, the alternative is change fatigue. You probably know some of these companies. It's like, well, let's try this. That didn't work. Let's try that. That didn't work. Let's try that. That didn't work. Right? So that's the other end of that. But at the same time, you run the risk if nothing gets through this level with the CEO owner lens, well, then you have a fate with the Yellow Cab company. So I also wanted to say one thing. This is just kind of a side note. I made myself a note for this. One of the things that I think makes me bananas is that companies that think that they're behaving like tech companies, but you really do have a CEO or an owner or somebody in that management level that really doesn't, is that they espouse that they have an R&D department, right? That they're the ones that are coming out with these new ideas. Like, we know our customer base really, really well. They're gonna, if they want something new, they'll tell us we have an R&D department. We're gonna do this. And I think that's nuts. This isn't kind of an insertion, so it's a little bit off track with my agenda. I think it's nuts because, how often do we as B2Bs or even B2Cs, are we visiting our customers' locations and understand where we are in that customer journey? Why did they pick us over a competitor? How do we know how important we are to their world or their life? And most of the time, it's probably not what we think it is. The other thing that bothers me the most is when you apply this stuff, we have R&D guys, because it's in the future. The futures have no dates. I mean, there's probably enough of us when we get in here, we talk about projects or things, they have these urgencies because it's an issue of this quarter. And that's not how tech companies are supposed to behave, right? It's about, when you're just handling this one thing because it's in front of you versus being strategic and grand in another direction. When we engage our clients at Envative, we always make sure that we have to understand that grand picture because of that very reason. It's like you might ask us to do this project, well, how does it feed or how does it move the needle overall? So that's a digression, but it makes me absolutely bananas, so I wanted to make sure I got that in there. Another example is going to be through another story about identifying when someone is behaving like a tech company. I think this is a good illustration of that. I think most of us are old enough to remember DVD rentals, Blockbuster Video, right? They were all over the country, pop up all over the place. And Netflix emerged. And they were just a challenge to Blockbuster in the fact that, you could get one on a website, you could order your DVD and they're going to deliver it right to your door. Which is really, it was cool and it was clever because at Blockbuster, if you remember, you get to Blockbuster, they didn't have your first video or even your second video. And you sell for your third video, waited in line, frustrated in traffic and stuff, went back home. And they got that done. And it was pretty clever through delivery systems, about how the DVDs were going to be different dispatching areas based on, what types of movies that you like in this particular area, trying videos and things like that. And that was really cool. But the difference between Netflix and how they behave like a tech company and others is this. They didn't stop there, right? They had already taken a bite out of the market share from Blockbuster. But then they saw an opportunity to apply some radical thinking. They started in about 2006, streaming videos little by little. Their strategic plan was now in place. And they ultimately removed the need for any physical inventory. They improved their profits. They expanded their market globally without any postage. And then emerged as one of the largest streaming services in the world. Now, what did they see that nobody else saw? Right? Because there was other competition there. Well, in 2006, Google bought YouTube for $1.6 billion, right when they started streaming videos from Netflix. So is this a better example of hearing the market and seeing what the behavioral changes before it was dire, in contrast to the yellow cab? I think so. I think it's a very good example. One of the things I want to talk about too is some tech and trends that I think is more evident that I think there are more companies embracing the fact that they are tech companies, regardless of their product or service. Because I still think it's out there that people might associate themselves with what they do. Like, we're an accounting firm, we're accountants, or we sell groceries, so you're in the grocery business. And it's true, there are products and services that are bought based on just quality and cost, but I think it's far more common that people are now engaging with products and services based on interaction and levels of engagement, right? How those companies behave and their reputation and the tools that they use. And when you think about some of the staples, going back a ways, accounting systems, CRMs, point of sales, well, those were all introduced, right, because they were more elegant in doing transactions more quickly, with less errors, and less manpower. But then it shifted, right? The power went away from those off-the-shelf software providers because now it's more customer-centric. When my partner David and I started Envative 20 years ago, we used to hear customer-centric this and that all the time. And it really wasn't. It was kind of a paradox of innovation because we were just building systems for them. But now, when you look at the Uber story or you look at the Netflix story, the power is in the end user, right? How we engage, the level of engagement. We're all reacting to that. And that's what turns us in to make sure that we're reminded that we are those tech companies. So we're seeing less and less off-the-shelf software purchases. And they moved into SaaS for a while, right? And so when you think of SaaS, like the Salesforce of the world, so the QuickBooks Online, give you some context. But those are going away now too, where we're getting more and more requests to build custom software based on these SaaS models because they want them to really be reflective of what's personal to them. Right? Those companies are seeing their tech as a reflection of who they are and how they want to be perceived by their customers, their partners, their vendors, just at large as far as their reputation. We're also seeing for SaaS, that migration away from SaaS, and I think that you could probably attest to this, is that no one now, or if we go back 10 years, if you go, this is what the software does, people create workarounds. But now it's just like, I want this to change. I want to call and I want this to change or I want this to evolve. Because even the SaaS models now cannot keep up with the iterations and evolutions of innovations or process steps in businesses because it's moving so quickly. Right, so it doesn't really matter what it is so much, but even our requests, where the integration still exists, is now it's IoT projects to augment a product that they might have, or it's a portal to control the release of some products, or their, how they can do some commerce behind the scenes to their vendors or distributors. Or there's mobile apps so they can interface with their customer base without friction, on demand. All these things are all evidence of that. One of the things too that David wanted me to make sure that I brought up that I had forgotten, which I think is an excellent point, is that we're still having a hard time convincing people that they are tech companies. And I made mention of that earlier, where they still want to associate themselves with their product or service. But I'm just going to tell one last story about, I'm going to keep it somewhat anonymous, because I don't know what I can or can't say, but there was this company that they rented out those luggage carts you get from airports, right? And they thought that they were in the travel business forever and ever, and they came to us and they needed to get some software done. What they wanted was a portal that would let all of these little kiosks talk to one another, report the data up to the cloud, could report it back to management, which was across the globe, and they could see in real time from which airports, which were generating the most money, where the cards were, how they're going. And they said, this is simply just an application of organization, right? They didn't think that they were all that innovative. They really thought they were still in the travel business. And we improved upon that. We had, the kiosk would report if it were cash, credit cards, finding out all these different pieces of analytics. And as soon as they were done thinking that they were efficient and they were just going to have, they were going to get more done with less people, they were bought. And they were bought because of the technology. SmartCart bought this company, so SmartCart's the big guy, but they bought this company because they had this tech. They didn't even realize that that was their value. And I think it's an interesting thing that we're still having a hard time convincing people that their technologies are now part of that package that gives value to that company. The last thing I wanted to mention, and then we can do like a little exercise in sideways thinking, if you guys want to, or you know what sideways thinking is already, we can skip it. But the last thing is that the one thing we have to be cognizant about is that our clients and customers are absolutely tech already. So if we keep pretending that we're not tech companies, or we're not behaving as tech companies, we're really doing ourselves a disservice that will end up being dire. Right? Long before an engagement or purchase is made, and I'm sure we all do this. You check LinkedIn and say, do you know anybody I know? Right? You're on Glassdoor. Is your company got a good reputation with its employees? Are they happy? They go to Yelp or check a review and see how, if it's glowing or if there's, something that they should be aware of. It's happening well before. So we have to acknowledge the fact that since our customer and client engagement is intact, we have to be intact. And we need to change our behavior to stay ahead of that. Lead and not follow. Now that's really the end of the monologue. I've said sideways thinking a couple times, and I saw some twitches. Does anybody know what sideways thinking is? Ever heard of it as far as engineering is concerned? So I'll just do this very, very quickly. In software, they talk about sideways thinking as a way to do problem breakdowns. Right, so like when you're solving a problem, they say, okay, it's element A, B, and C. You have to tackle them. Like if you solve problem A, what is the consequence of problem B or problem C? And then how do you get the most bang for your buck in your problem solving? So they talk about looking at it sideways, like adjusting your view where we're so used to doing things top down. So there's an exercise. Anybody interested in doing this one? It's really quick. It's super easy. Let's just say that it's raining out. You pull up to a curb, it's pouring, and there's 3 people at the curb. And this is the A, B, and C. There's an old woman shivering. There's a dude standing there that is like your best friend, or like he saved your life one day. You're indebted to this guy. And then it's the guy or girl of your dreams that you've been dying to meet, spend some time with, and you might never get that opportunity ever again. What do? You have a 2-seater car. How do you solve the problem? Right, because our heads are going to go right to what's A. It's like, oh, well, if I save the old woman, then I'm going to bum out my best friend, and then I'm never going to get a chance to meet that guy or girl in my dreams ever again. Does anybody have an inkling of how you would attack this on a sideways? Okay. I'll give you the answer and we'll break it down. The answer is you give the keys to your best friend to drive the old lady home, and you stay in the rain, wait for the bus with the guy or girl of your dreams, right? And when I say it, you go, oh, of course. Because we all have those skills. We all have those levels of deduction. But we're so used to attacking a problem in one direction, we don't see it the other. Right, so this is an exercise that we do at Envative, and other people do that too. We're not exclusive to that. But it's that level of behavior, attacking it from those directions that make it different. That's all I got. How did I do in time?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? Yeah. You can do questions or answers for a little bit if you want, or we can wrap it up. It's a quiet group. Find value in this? No? All right, good talking, right? You like the stories?
Yeah.
Any questions about our process and how it works and how we unfold it or anything like that? Is there anything that would get that dialogue going? Is there any level of interest in that stuff? It's not forced, it's just we have the time if we want it. All right, great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.